after a long day of physical activity, let's say you sprain your ankle. Now, normally, after a couple of weeks or even sooner, your leg will be as good as new. But in the case of Raffi or myself, if we crack our prosthetics, we don't have the opportunity to heal naturally. So we end up waiting sometimes as long as a few months to get a new prosthetic or fit. And so that can put us at a big disadvantage. However, that doesn't mean that our bodies will break if we bump into something and twist our legs or snap it or some other way. It can mean that we're just active enough, and then it can put strain on our prosthetics, on our blade, and it can naturally over time start to break. Sometimes it's sooner than later. In the case of Raffi, with how active he is, especially with him doing triathlons, and that can usually be a lot sooner than if it were me. I've had my leg now for 3 or 4 years, and I'm not the most active person, so my leg has held up pretty well. But there has been some damage to it. Now, before I show you, just know that this has happened over several years, and that it can happen when the blade rubs up against foot shell. My foot shell, it has a few cracks in it because of the friction between the blade and the material. So usually there's a sock that's on it, and then that sock, sock that's in there, and it's supposed to prevent that friction from the carbon fiber with the, and so it can rub up and it will start cracking. Now, especially in recent years, because of how many hills I have walked up, even more stress on it. So there's been a lot more cracking. And there's also some other reasons along with that, is that my shoe gets in the way. And there's some also reasons with that, like my shoe wear. Here you go, here's the picture. Now before there's judgment, just know that the probably the worst thing about this leg wasn't even that there was cracks in it, because you can't really tell unless you're staring directly at my foot. And I can't tell either. It's not a big impact. The biggest part of that whole thing isn't even the broken pieces part of the leg itself. Squeaks that it makes whenever I'm walking. A few years, and I've done camping and hiking and all this other stuff, and so occasionally I'm outdoors walking on like gravel, stones will get inside the foot shell, and I'll of course try to dig them out, especially if there's one always stuck in there, like I'll rip my shell off and get it out. But the biggest thing was the squeaking. Now when I say squeaking, it squeaks a lot, and that was the worst part about mine, but I eventually got that rocked out, and so now it doesn't squeak as much, so you'll get a squeak effect if it doesn't squeak as much. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about Raffi's prosthetic. Now, aren't you glad that I showed you my prosthetic first? It's so nice looking, so clean compared to his broken prosthetic. I mean, it's impressive how he manages to break those prosthetics. But again, he's active, and that can put unnecessary, and that can stress on that point wherever he is. For the most part, it's just him being Raffi and being active and running triathlons and doing biking and running and doing this and being as active as possible. But more to my earlier point about prosthetics breaking is that if they do break, it's actually a big issue for us. Not even if it breaks. If we, like in my case, I've in the past had to not wear my prosthetic because my leg becomes swollen if I didn't wear it properly, or I was at the beach well up and I couldn't wear it without it causing a lot of pain. And so instances like that, it's not even the leg breaking, it's sometimes my fault, and then I have to pay the price for it by using a wheelchair or crutches or this, however I can to get over there. Now, unfortunately, crutches don't work for me all that well. I mean, unfortunately, crutches aren't usually the best, so I usually stick to wheelchairs. And there's pros and cons with that, but really shows you that if you're not able to, if you don't have that leg, you have the ability to walk as you used to. But it shows you that if you don't have that leg, you start to learn that you're not able to do as many things as you normally would be able to do with the prosthetics. So that's why having prosthetics is a huge advantage. It really improves our lives a lot. So whenever I'm in a wheelchair and I don't have my prosthetics broken or my leg is torn, whatever it may be, I get to appreciate it. So that's when Raffi's legs, when they snap, it's especially detrimental to him. So that's why we rely on our prosthetists, especially our prosthetists, to get a temporary fix until insurance can get us a new prosthetic leg, which can take some time, especially. The fix is usually a fiberglass wrapping, always temporary, but it holds well. And I'll explain kind of all these instances and leg swelling and issues, common issues that happen with prosthetics, and probably later video. But for right now that we've talked about that, let's go see what Raffi has to say about all this with his prosthetics and how he managed to snap his leg. What did you do?
I did the triathlon.
You did triathlon? Yeah. Was there anything else that you did?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day. Raffi will be in a lot more videos.